Hi guys, the Metal Maniac back again, and in this video I'm going to be listing off my top 5 favorite albums of 1986. So with that, let's just get into it. Alright, number 5. Number 5 is the album Night Songs by the band Cinderella. Yeah, this band actually started off as a glam metal band. I don't like any of their later stuff. I only really like this first album, mainly because they went from glam metal to I think like southern blues rock, and I don't really like that type of music. But as for their glam metal stuff, which is basically just this album, it is absolutely amazing. um, yeah, it's on the heavier side of glam metal, but you know it's still glam metal. Um, they actually had a couple of singles. I believe "Shake Me," "Nobody's Fool," and I believe the other one was "Push Push." I don't know. They had 3 singles. I'm not sure which one was the third one, but I don't know. It's kind of confusing because there are some singles that have different names, but I'm pretty sure those are bootlegs. But I don't know. I'm getting off topic. Anyway, yeah. So this band, especially with this album, is absolutely amazing. You get Tom Kiefer, who is the lead vocalist and guitarist, or I guess I don't know if he's the lead guitar or just secondary guitar. Um, but I mean, since they only have one other guitarist at this time, I think he was the lead guitarist. But yeah, like I said, it's on the heavier side of glam metal. The riffs are a bit heavier, they're a bit more sort of, well, with most songs, but yeah, it's really cool because most glam metal, at least the stuff that I've heard, for the most part, is a bit more light, more sort of like, I guess, commercial. There's some moments in here like that, but there's also some heavier stuff. Um, Going back to Tom Kiefer. Tom Kiefer has some really cool, sort of unique glam metal vocals. They're a bit more rougher, and they kind of have sort of like a I don't want to say some kind of like I don't know where he's from, but you could really clearly hear his sort of like accent from wherever he's from in his vocals. Especially in the higher, especially with the more um sharper, more higher, sort of gruffer bits here and there. Which I think his sort of like accent. I think he's from New York, maybe. I don't know, but I can't remember where he's from. But that distinct accent pops up when he hits the higher, gruffer notes. But yeah, I think that makes his vocals pretty unique. The guitar work on here is really, really good. You get some really cool, very powerful riffs, some very catchy, powerful riffs, and some really cool semi-technical, semi-melodic guitar solos on here. Now, I was planning to do a review of this album. Now, usually before I feature an album like a top 5 or a top 10 of anything, I usually do a review of that album before I put it in whatever list. And I did plan on doing a review of this. I actually recorded the video, but I was having some technical issues. The video wasn't uploading right, so I had to take it down. And I am planning on re-recording that review, doing that again at some point soon. But yeah, anyway, if you guys haven't seen this album, in the review video, that's because it's not up on my channel. I have to redo the review. Anyway, but yeah, Night Songs by Cinderella is absolutely amazing, and it's at my number 5 spot. All right, number 4. Number 4 is the only EP on this list, and that's "I Will Be There" by Gog Magog. Gog Magog was a supergroup created in 1986 and only lasted for a few months. It was the second band that Paul Di'Anno was in after he left Iron Maiden. Of course, the first one being the his self-titled band Deanna, which I still need to get that Deanna album. I really really like it. I just don't own it yet. But yeah, this was released in 1986, of course, because it's on this list. Anyway, and further first and only release, it's actually really really good. A lot of people sort of ignore it. A lot of people sort of ignore the early Paul Di'Anno stuff that, at least the early, not the early Paul, the early stuff he did on his solo careers, like when he was out of Maiden. A lot of people ignore this. A lot of people ignore the Di'Anno album and just sort of acknowledge everything after those two releases, everything else. But yeah, I don't get the hate for this. It's really good. Yeah, sure, it's not metal, but it's still really good. Sort of kind of hard rock slash radio rock kind of thing. Now this only contains 3 songs. It's a very short EP. It's like 11 minutes long. But that 11 minutes is definitely worth your time. Of course, you get the song "I Will Be There," which is the title track. Oddly enough, it doesn't have a guitar solo, and usually that kind of ruins a song for me, especially when it's rock or metal. But honestly, this one feels like it didn't really need a solo. It's fine. It's fine without it. Oddly enough, of course, you get "Living in a Fucking Time Warp," which is also really good, and then the EP closes with oh god, I always forget the name of the song, the last one, because it's actually kind of a long title. Hold on. It's called "It's Illegal, It's Immoral, It's Unhealthy, but It's Fun." Yeah, pretty long title for a song, but yeah, it ends with that. All have really good, instrumentation, great drumming, great guitar work, great bass, and also, of course, great vocal work by Paul Di'Anno. Also, there's some other big names on here as well. The only one I don't recognize is the name oh no, sorry. There are 2 that I don't recognize: Neil Murray and Peter Willis. But there are 2 other band members on here that are big names that I do know. Of course, you get Yannick Gears on guitar, and of course, Yannick Gears would later go on to join Iron Maiden. And then you also get Clive Burr on drums, who at this time used to be a member of Iron Maiden. So you get, 3 members of Iron Maiden, 2 past members and 1 future member on one record, which is amazing. But yeah, just a really cool sort of EP. And if you're a Paul Di'Anno fan and, are willing to look past just the Maiden stuff and go look for his stuff he did afterwards, definitely seek this one out. I don't think it's that expensive. I paid probably if I remember, probably $50 for at the very most. But yeah, it's definitely worth checking out. But yeah, it's at my number 4 spot. Number 3. Number 3 is Turbo by Judas Priest. Yeah, this is a love it or hate it album. Half people, half of the community loves it, half of them hate it. And yeah, I mean, I'm on the first half. I love this album. Yeah, sure, it's glammy and cheesy, but you know what? I love glammy and cheesy kind of metal, and so this is for me. Anyway, the first time I heard this, I believe, was probably 3 years ago. And at the time, I hadn't heard a lot of Judas Priest, so I didn't really have any sort of reference. And maybe that's why I like it so much, because at the time I didn't have enough reference. I didn't have a lot of reference to what Judas Priest's sort of sound was. Yeah, I heard I already had heard Ram It Down and Painkiller and Jugulator and even Defenders of the Faith. But honestly, at that point and Firepower. But at that point, I still, there are many other Judas Priest albums I hadn't heard yet. So maybe that's why a lot of people have bias towards it. Maybe that's why a lot of people don't like it, because they're used to the other stuff. But this is, like I said, this is one of the very first Judas Priest albums I ever heard, And yeah, maybe that's why I love it so much. Anyway, the songs on here are really really good for the most part, except for probably uh probably Rocking All Around the World. No, Wild Nights and Hot and Crazy Days. Now, I used to think that song was okay, but I don't really like it anymore. But there's some really cool underrated classics on here. Turbo Lover, which I think is probably the most well known and most well loved of the entire songs on here, but still kind of underrated in my opinion. Locked In is a really good one. But if I would have to pick probably my three favorites: Turbo Lover, Parental Guidance, and Reckless. Now there was a live version of a couple of these songs. They did a live album after during the tour, which they did release in '87, I believe, which I own. It's actually right here. Hold on, this one right here, Priest Live. And there's a lot of these songs on that version. I think a couple of them are a lot better than on here. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I love this album, and I don't get the hate. I don't understand the hate it gets. But yeah, this is at number 3. Number 2. Number 2 is Fatal Portrait by King Diamond. This album took me a while to get into. Like, the first listen, when I originally had the CD version, I didn't really like it all that much, in maybe like one or two listens after, but it grew on me more and more. The more and more I listened to it, the more and more I loved it. And now it's one of my all-time favorite King Diamond albums. So much so that I had to get the vinyl version. Yeah, I mean, for their debut album, it does kind of, in a way, kind of feel a little bit more Merciful Fate than, the rest of their King Diamond albums. But even so, it still does sound different from Merciful Fate, to where, it definitely, even though it sounds a little bit like it, it definitely feels more like King Diamond than Merciful Fate. But yeah, there's some, there's very few songs on here that I don't like. I think the only one that I don't like, I believe, is, what one? Oh, it was the end track, Haunted. Or was it Haunted, or was it The Portrait? Well, both songs are kind of meh. But honestly, the rest of the album is amazing. The Candle is one of my favorite album openers ever. The Jonah is awesome. Oh no, it wasn't The Portrait. It was the Jonah. That's what I was thinking of. The Jonah is the one that I think is the, is my least favorite of the bunch, not The Portrait. Anyway, yeah, The Portrait's awesome. Dressed in White is one of my favorite King Diamond songs of all time. Chair On is awesome. Lurking in the Dark, Halloween. The instrumental voices from the past is really cool too. And then you get some of the highest King Diamond vocals ever. Now, yeah, sure, he does some super super high stuff from time to time on the later albums, but when you but listen to just listen to something like The Candle, and he's probably way up there, even more so than he usually is. And his usual vocals are super super high pitched, but certain notes, especially on the opening track, The Candle, is super high. But yeah, just a really good album and an awesome legendary lineup too. You got Timmy Hansen on bass, lead guitar with Michael Denner, who I believe left after the Abigail album. Andy LaRocque on guitar and Mickey D on drums, and of course King Diamond on vocals, obviously. But yeah, all in all, this is definitely one of the best King Diamond albums ever released, and I absolutely love it. That's why it's at my number 2 spot. Alright, my favorite album of 1986 is the album Hallowed by the band Hallowed. Hallowed was an Italian, not thrash metal, an Italian glam metal band that was around from 1985 to 1987 and only released this one album. And even though they only released this one album, it is amazing. Now, I have to admit, when I originally listened to it, and when I was doing my initial review of this album, I only really liked 4 songs. But pretty much after that, when this is another album that kind of grew on me over time, and I've now I love almost every single song on here except for 2 of the songs in side 2. But yeah, everything else on here is absolutely amazing. Now, this has a cool combination of a little bit more heaviness, and it has a good balance between the more heavy side of glam metal and the more light side of glam metal. You get some of the heavier stuff, not super heavy, but the slightly more heavy stuff with Wake Up in the Night and stuff like that. Now, most of it's more the lighter stuff, but it does have some cool technical and melodic elements to the musicality. This has some of the catchiest guitar riffs in all of glam metal, and also it has some of the most beautiful melodic / technical guitar solos you'll ever hear on any album ever. Just super cool, super just emotional, and it just really sort of like ingrains itself in your very being, because I'm not kidding, the guitar work and especially the solos are just so mind-blowing. As for the vocals are also really good. What's his name? Massimo Numa has one of the coolest sort of glam metal vocals. Yeah, sure, he could do the more light, usual kind of glam metal vocals, but he adds a little bit of gruffness to it at times as well. And yeah, if you haven't heard this album, definitely go check it out. Yeah, sure, it's kind of harder to find nowadays. Oh, and if you're looking for the CD version, I really warn you, don't get the vinyl version, because the CD version goes for $900 or more, especially on Amazon. So if you're looking for this album, definitely get the vinyl version. It's definitely a lot less. Way less. Like, I got this for about probably $80. Now the price does vary. I checked recently the price. I think the standard price for this now goes for about I'd say a little over 80, although that might have changed. But yeah, the price does vary on this one a bit. But the CD version is definitely if you don't want to spend $900 on a CD version, get the vinyl anyway. But yeah, just a really amazing album. One of the best, albums. Well, I'd say it's my favorite album. I would say it's the best album of '86, but it's my favorite album of '86. It's also my favorite glam metal album of all time. It's just absolutely amazing. But yeah. Alright, so that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you all next time.